Guess, any questions, any comments from the public? Hearing none, moving on. New business, update from the Harwich Finance Director, Kathleen, I'm gonna kill that word.
Barrett.
Barrett,
Yep,
okay,
perfect.
welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
This is not homework, don't worry.
I don't have a printer that collates or staples, so. And the print quality's kind of crappy too, so.
Thank you.
We're working on it. Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. In the meantime, I'll remind the board, all questions to the finance director go through the chair. And at this meeting, the only thing that's gonna be discussed with the finance director are the CPC discussions. So-
Kathleen, if you want to give me an extra one for the member that's not here, if you had an extra one, I could.
When this,
No, you don't.
when I'm complete, I can give you my working copy.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
You have the floor.
Thank you. For those who don't know me, my name is Kathleen Barrett. I'm the finance director. I joined the town June 1st. And I've been hitting the ground running. Dave and I have had multiple conversations about the CPA fund and all the different ins and outs. And I know the biggest question is always, how much money do we have and how does it all work? And just as a kind of a disclaimer, we are still closing the books on 23 and carrying things into 24. So there's a few reconciling items that we are working on for the beginning balances and ending balances for like ending 23 into 24. So they're pretty close, and as soon as I have actual numbers, I can give these to you. But what I have distributed to you is kind of the process by which we work. So it'll make more sense when and we're working to get like a template. So where, completely transparent and all the information that is on the state website will tie into what we have and vice versa. And so everything, it'll be easy to follow. And ideally, once we're caught up and we have all the information that we have, it should go pretty quickly. It was just, had to go back a few years. So the top page that I gave you is a spreadsheet that I put together, and what it is, it's how we reconcile the CPA fund. So we take the prior year's ending balance and becomes our beginning balance, and then we allocate all the funds as it's voted at town meeting. So we have kind of the ins and outs of, if, for example, we have the 10% allocation, which is the top line. So it shows money into open space, historic, and housing, along with the operating, the $25,000 for the administrative expenses. And so that was voted to be offset by revenue, which is in the last column. And so each article, as we go through, I live and die by the town meeting results on the town website. So this was just an example, which I can distribute to, which has, what you all put together, what the project is, how to be funded, and what the motion says and what the action was. So those are the components that I go through for each one in determining how to allocate the funds and record them in our software, which is called Munis. So this is how we go back and forth to make sure money goes in, money comes out, and we have all the balances. Once we establish the balances for each article, they will, the report, the second page says FY 2022 example of actual financial report. The front page will list all the warrant articles, and will show their balances, how much is expended, and how much remains at the end of the year. And one of the things that we the way this fund works is those balances will continue forward year to year until they're fully expended or until they're voted to be rescinded. The project is completed, there's some funds left over. We call them continuing appropriations. So what we do is everything rolls forward year to year. So this front page is all the expenses. The second page is the revenue. So the revenue is taxes. As you know, CPA has a surcharge on people's taxes. It's part of their tax bill. And the town of Harwich charges 3%. So we collect funds from, if you're behind in your taxes, we can collect those funds. So you'll see multiple years, and then you'll see things that say tax title redeemed. So if your taxes are so far behind, they're put in tax title, people will come in and they'll pay those balances. And then any penalties and interest that we collect. And then the interest is the interest earned on the funds in the bank. What you'll also see is, it's called CPC from state. So the state will allocate funds to the towns, and they do it in three rounds. So we will record those funds separately. And those are dependent on with the real estate sales. So that's not like a fixed dollar amount. And as you'll see on the second page, it'll have like at the first column, it says revised budget as well as the estimated revenue, and then actual revenue. So every town is conservative in their estimates. You never want to estimate so high that then you don't make it and you've voted that money and you haven't collected it. You never know what the economy or, other factors will bring you, so we try to be very conservative. And we also report that to the state. If there was any large variances, the state, that we report to is, you have to give them a good reason. Otherwise, they're like, nope, go back down. So these are the reports that we use all year to monitor the activity and to see how things are going. We take all of that data and then we report it to the state. So we have, I didn't include all of them, but what I did include is in something that's called Gateway. So the Department of Revenue, Division of Local Services, is who we deal with for all our financial reporting. And we have to report all the activity, all the funds that we've collected, everything that we estimate, and everything that was voted, and everything that was expended. So this is how we report all of the information. And you'll see like actual revenues and estimated revenues. So they're always pretty close insofar as actual versus estimated, because we really do have to prove any type of variances. And then we do everything below is the appropriations, the administrative expenses, and the other funds. So this is everything that we certify to the state that we have done. So this just kind of gives you an idea of some of the things that we've talked about over the past few months. And everyone goes, well, how much money do we have? Looks like we have a lot of money. And so in total, there are, the majority of which is committed funds. So I say committed funds in the sense that over the years, there have been, the various town meetings, all of the funds they've been voted for various projects that have been approved through your committee. So, and anything that is, remains at the end of the year is still committed and will carry into the next year. So you'll start off with all of those balances and then whatever's voted at the next town meeting. So this will give you an indication of just kind of where all the funds are. We try to be, oops, I'm so sorry, very transparent and, show like all of these. And all of these reports, everything that's on the state is public record and, it's, they're a little confusing to look at, believe me. But these just kind of give you an indication of, where we stand. And we run these on a regular basis just to make sure everything's done correctly, that no article is, overspent in error, and, if everything's, cleared up. And then as the year towards the end, if there's anything that's going to be rescinded, we just make a notation for the following year. So this will kind of give you an indication of, how much money is available. So at the end of FY '22, which is this top spreadsheet, you could see the subtotal on the bottom. It had a beginning balance, like for open space, of 641,000 and change. Added the 10%, another 161,171, for a subtotal of 803,165. When we turn back funds, there are small amounts that go back to those funds at the end, depending on how they were voted. If you voted something 5 years ago from open space and you have $100 left, we put it back in the open space. There was some instances where there was a little bit of confusion, I think, in years past. So we're going through and trying to get the balances to be a little more accurate for all of the adjustments. What I have noticed in reviewing these is almost every article is voted from estimated revenues. So the example that I gave is estimated revenues, and this was $1,856,710, and was voted $1,798,702.39. So there was only 58,000 of revenue that was not voted. So there is something, it is worth to keep in mind to stay probably within the prior year's revenue numbers when allocating funds for articles, just so you don't have the instance where we go over. Just something for an example. The other documentation that I attached is a few of the pages from the IGR, which is the information guideline release, which I'm sure you're very familiar with all of the different, information about this fund. And there's just a few things that I noted, just made a little notation next to. You're probably more familiar with it than I am in instances. But, there's the minimum annual commitment, the 10%. If anyone, that's where that's referenced. And a community may appropriate from estimated annual revenue funds. That's where that's referenced, because it can be not something that normally happens. But spending from appropriations from estimated annual fund revenue can only commence July 1 of the fiscal year. So you can't spend any money the year before. And that administrative and operating expenses of the CPC are considered annual operating expenses, and any unspent balances are closed at the end of the year. Just there was some confusion about that.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Of course.
Does that include any administrative fund previous couple of years where town meeting designated a certain amount of money?
I mean, that's
It
Go ahead,
was
a
just
slippery
one
slope.
article.
one article.
That was the special town meeting one.
Was it $60,000?
Right.
Right. There's only a balance of like 30 in it now, I think, or something.
I mean, if you follow the letter of that direction, administrative expenses should be turned back at the end of the year, and another one can be voted each year. I mean, if it was like, for a special purpose, it was part of a project, there are
was.
provisions
So
for
it
that.
was.
It was for a special project.
Yeah, if it, corresponds with a special article project, then that would be, but it's normally, it might even be like incorporated in that article. But, it really depends on the circumstance, it's not always, black and white. But, normal, like, day-to-day operating expenses for unanticipated expenses would be turned back at the end of the year.
Okay.
Yeah, just was saying,
Good.
this particular one was to be used for tax title research, legal fees regarding those kinds of things, so.
And that would normally, because that's generic and it's not specific to if you needed, special lawyers who were familiar with wetlands or something for land you wanted to buy, that would be more in keeping with something that would carry forward as a project. Whereas if it's in general, you need expenses to research tax title for the town, that would be something that would return back. And you could just vote another one the next year. Because it's really just administrative expenses. It's not tied to a project.
That's a change. Mary?
So my one question is, if that money was already committed, money could be committed but not yet
Spent.
invoiced. So,
Oh,
for
like for the-
example, if we had a project and I think one of them we anticipated $60,000 for engineering fees on one of the projects. There was something, but you could, I mean, if they've
It
just
was
not,
the 30,000 for the Judah Eldridge survey
okay,
that came out of that particular fund.
okay.
Yeah, and that's usually, fine, but like in general, it's for there, because there are expenses that you don't necessarily anticipate. They could be for articles that you're researching that you haven't necessarily approved. But it's more that it's looked as an overview of just general administrative and operating expenses, rather than, if you have to do, substantial engineering work for a project, you can even incorporate it into that article.
Okay. Next question I have is, and I wound up in a furball with DOR a few times. The rescinded money. They want to wait till the previous year to use that money.
They want to wait until it's
It's
certified.
reconciled. Well, the books
Until
are
it's certified,
closed.
right.
Right.
That's the best way to put it.
Mhm.
So, but once the books are closed, that money becomes available.
Not until it's certified.
So again, it's another year.
No, if it's certified as part of certifying the FY '23, it would be available for us in May to appropriate for the
For
next
25,
round.
right.
Okay,
It'd be
that's what I
part of
needed.
this, it'd be part of
Yeah,
the
yeah.
certified balance that we vote.
Yeah, you
As
can't,
opposed to the estimated.
until it's certified by the state, and all the balances are certified, it's still in flux. You can't, vote anything that doesn't technically, per the state, exist. Everyone, it's this limbo period that's, it's a little difficult, because you're like, well, the money's there, but you're like, but it's not certified,
Well,
Yeah,
see,
like
the
it-
problem I had with the whole situation was, town meeting had already approved that money being voted. It had already gone through the certification process. So, money's coming back in. Again, it's an accounting,
yeah,
So-
it's just an accounting thing. It's not necessarily, it's just that every year we go through this process, and I do it for every fund, every dollar that comes in through the town has to go through the same process.
Fair
June
enough.
30th, no money exists. It's really, that's how it is. There's no money unless it's a special revenue fund that carries over year to year, or a special article. No money exists.
all right, can I open it up to the board? Are you all set with your presentation?
Yeah, I mean, I tried, just to give a quick overview. I know you're probably more familiar with it than I am, but kind of like what my perspective is, how we look at it, how we record it. All the expenses are recorded specific to the article. We do review it. I can send you the report monthly, so you could see, the article activity, see what the balances are. I think it would be helpful. Sometimes the reports, when you first see them, they do look kind of like Latin. They're not the easiest to read. I'll be the first person to,
I'll say it out loud.
yeah.
I dislike Munis.
Yeah, most
But
people
anyway.
do. It does everything but drive you home and make your lunch.
And if you don't connect to the right,
But it's not easy to use.
no, it's not. Thank you. All right, open up to the board. Mary, go ahead.
So through you, Mr. Chair, so the one piece that I'm looking at this was year end for fiscal 2022. So this would have been June 30th, 2022
Exactly.
on these balances.
Mhm.
So, I think the piece that's just a little confusing for me in looking at this, in 2022, we did not vote a lot of estimated revenue. We mostly voted certified revenue. We voted very little estimated revenue in that fiscal year,
In
at that
21
meeting.
for 22?
No, in 22, we voted very little estimated revenue because we did have a lot of applications. In 23, we were trying to be uber conservative because we hadn't, we weren't sure about our total numbers, I guess is the best way to put it. So we voted mostly anticipated revenue in June of 2023. But in June of 2022, we voted mostly certified balances. There were only, I think, a couple of accounts that we tapped for estimated. So that's the only thing that I guess,
When I look at the town meeting articles, and this was one of the things going through years of these, there was a lot of descriptions of funding sources.
Yep.
And they're kind of confusing. We only have the categories here. There's the special purpose, there's undesignated, and there's revenue. So usually it's all, there's no certified revenue. It would be either an undesignated or the three categories.
so you would have a certified balance as of the end of the year. That's what we're typically told.
That's called the undesignated fund balance.
It's traditionally been given to us in forms for each bucket because they have to get trued up every year, correct? When you're certifying the revenue that comes in, we have to make sure that our 10% has been accounted for, right? If we had underestimated or overestimated.
Well, the 10% is you on estimated revenue. It does get a little bit confusing, so, all these terms, because they're municipal terms, they get a little, because, people get upset, like the words like free cash and undesignated. And,
Please, I perfectly understand what free cash is,
yeah,
so.
no, you're one of the few. Everyone thinks it's free money that, I've got a bag of under my desk.
Yeah, no.
I wish it was that
Go to
easy.
your house.
Yeah.
So-
I mean, last time I looked, I haven't found it, but when I look at these for the allocation, we have funds that are specified specifically for either open space, historic, or housing. There's undesignated funds, and then there's estimated revenues. And estimated revenues will be the revenues that will be coming through in the following year. So if you're at Maytown meeting, you're voting estimated revenues, you're voting against revenues you anticipate in the next fiscal year.
Right.
So those are the only categories. There's no certified revenue.
There's a certified balance when you certify free cash, you're gonna give us a balance of what,
It's within undesignated fund balance. There is no certified free cash category.
I'm not saying certified free cash, but you would to some degree, you have to keep track of the buckets because
right.
we have to, we cannot choose not to
Right.
spend historic for 3 years, and we still have to keep that
Right.
relative to historic. So that's what I'm referring
Oh,
to
yeah.
with the certified balances in each of the buckets and undesignated.
Right. I
So
mean,
we know what's there, and then we also know when it comes to anticipated revenue, that whatever that revenue is, 30% of it is dedicated, 10 in each, has to be designated 10 in each bucket. And presumably, when you certify free cash with the rest of the balances at year end, you're truing up those numbers, wouldn't you?
They don't really need to be trued up because the only thing you would do at the end of the year is if there was any turnbacks. Your balances are what you start with, like you allocate the funds at town meeting, July 1, that's what you have. You voted $161,000 into open space, and like historic, you voted $161,000 in, and you voted $485,734 and change out. So
Right,
at the
but-
end, you have 330.
But if our revenues are $2 million in the next year, the $161,000 isn't gonna be sufficient to cover that.
Well,
that
because it's
bucket.
estimated, they don't make you like go back and add more. These are reasonable estimates. I have not in the past ever added additional components because it's not a voted amount. I couldn't put more in those buckets until it's something that's adjusted at town meeting.
Okay. Okay.
So I don't like reconcile necessarily like the special purpose funds. You know, the activity is recorded, and there really shouldn't be much in and out except from town meeting. And then if, you know, you say, you know, like these 5 articles, you know, the end of the year, I'll be like, you know, what's the status of these? Of these 5, go back. You know, 4 of them were for historic, so we would put, you know, $100 each article back in historic, and that's your balance. I mean, that's about the only adjustments that we would make. The only real activity is in the actual articles.
Okay.
And the end of the year, if there is excess revenue, that would go into the undesignated fund balance as well. It's not necessarily like a certified like it is other funds. It is, we report all the balances to the state. They don't necessarily go through and be like, I'm gonna deduct this and add this and make this adjustment, which is
So-
different from other funds.
So when it comes to the revenue that came in fiscal '23, when would you have a sense of what the actual revenue was versus the estimated, versus when you would anticipate certifying free cash?
That would be like when we close the books for everything. Yeah, it'd be like, you know, in a perfect world, it'd be by now.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. I know we certified in September in Harwich, in Yarmouth, so
Yeah.
that's why I
Yeah.
just didn't know if you had any anticipated date yet as to when it was gonna happen. We typically look to vote in January, so
Yeah,
it's coming up fast and furious to,
yeah, it's gonna be very different this year.
that's
Okay.
unfortunate.
Well, you can't have, you don't have a treasurer for 10 months, that's what happens.
Just commenting, it's unfortunate.
Yeah, it is. I'm the
Because for
first
us,
person
it's,
to agree with that.
It's difficult when it comes to us trying to make decisions, so.
Kathy?
Yeah, a couple things. One
Go ahead,
about
Maria.
the land bank debt,
Mhm.
which for the last 2 years has been doubly recorded, I guess. Came out of the capital plan, and then it came out of
capital plan, right.
CPC funds, and it was, so one of them was supposed to go back for each year. Do you know if that's happened yet? It was a double dip, so to speak.
2 years in a row.
Yeah.
Double dip how?
Because we voted on it in the capital plan, and then we voted on it under CPA monies.
And it
So
was
it was
supposed to go
recorded
through,
twice.
So you can't pay the debt twice. I mean, I'm not having gone through this and not being familiar with prior year capital plans, I can't really speak to that, but
We
if,
just want to make sure the money goes back to our undesignated fund.
I think the point was that it was voted twice at town meeting, and therefore, we were told it was recorded twice on the ledger. So that was the point. We had it had been debited as a part of the capital plan at a town meeting earlier article as part of the budget, and then it was also a separate article under the CPA articles.
you had
which is how
debt
we
payments in your capital plan?
Yep.
this is an
Apparently, yes.
interpretation from,
This is what we were told last time around.
this is from legal.
I'll be honest with you, I can look into it. I can't foresee why you would ever in a million years have debt payments in your capital plan, but I don't know. I will
It was
look
included
into
it was included as a part of the budget, was I think the understanding that we were given, and was recorded that way. So the feeling was that it was voted twice and that it was recorded in the ledger twice. So that's, I think, where the confusion came in for us, to make sure that we didn't spend it twice.
Kathy?
And my other question has to do with a land grant, the LAND grant, which came in at the end of June for $400,000.
Mhm.
Has that been, like, recorded and put into the open space bucket, so
23
to
isn't
speak?
finished, so no, we haven't made that final entry.
Okay, because that would be a grant from the state.
Yeah, we did receive the funds from the
Okay,
state.
so you did receive
Yeah,
them?
but they're just not recorded in Munis because we
Okay,
still
but you
haven't.
did receive them, so they will
Yeah,
be?
yeah, yep, it came at the very, very end of June.
Okay, all right. Sense.
Okay, thanks Kathy. Bob?
So you did make a statement that we shouldn't be spending our estimated, or it's not recommended to spend the estimated?
It's not recommended to spend more than last year's revenue.
Okay, but,
Like if you wouldn't, like this, the estimated revenue is 1.8 in FY '22. If you had voted like 2.3 million of estimated revenues and articles, you could have the problem where you don't get enough state funds or revenue
and
decreases,
I don't think
yeah.
we've ever even tried to do that.
Yeah, it's pretty close, it's under 100,000 each year, the
Okay,
difference between estimated, like voted and estimated. So
okay.
it's just, it's a, certainly it's a choice, but, it could, you just never know. You can't guarantee, revenue collection.
But you said but we conservatively do the estimated, so it's gonna more than likely, we will have that revenue, correct? If that's the estimate?
I mean, that's the goal. I mean, you certainly, we estimate conservatively, but, we try to be reasonable. It's just a recommendation. I mean, it's certainly to be within 100,000 each year is just something just wanted to bring to your attention, just so you're aware that, for the most part, you do vote the majority of the revenue that
Right.
is collected.
Okay,
Whereas, every town approaches it differently. Some will vote only from the
Right.
special purpose funds and not like all of the revenue, because there's some, depending on the town and the projects, you may be looking to save for something that's coming through in 2 to 3 years that's considerable, and you don't have, you're spending pretty much all you're bringing in.
okay. And another question,
Go
if
ahead,
I may. In the first page that you have, the recap, you show us the example. And for instance, historic, you're coming in with $663,000. Now, that includes money we could actually vote and allocate out. It doesn't include previous articles. In other words, there aren't outstanding balances or appropriations in that 660.
No, those are
Those are the real.
the funds that you're available to appropriate
Yeah,
from.
so, and we
Yeah.
had the 10%, which was an estimate, I assume, at that point, or was that actual? We don't know on this example.
That was the determined estimate. yeah.
Okay, and then, so took money out. So in
Yep.
theory, at the end of the year, we still have 338,000 in the historic bucket that we
Exactly.
can use
Yep.
next year.
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Mary?
So I guess the part of your statement that concerns me a little bit is, I understand your point about not voting more than your estimated revenue. We have not traditionally strictly voted estimated revenue. We did have a point where there was my first year on this board, we had to meet before town meeting at town council's behest to make sure that we specified when we were voting from estimated revenues. But we traditionally, I think if you look back, all of our money doesn't come out of estimated, we only take some out of estimated. So I'm not sure that last year, for example, we would have spent 1.8 million in estimated revenue. I think some of that would have been from certified balances versus just, so that's kind of where I'm having a hard time with your statement about
Sure,
the
so,
estimated.
in this instance, for FY '22, the
Mm-hmm.
town meeting, for FY '22, the estimated revenues for that year was 1.856 million, and the voted revenue for that year was 1.798 million.
And that may have been the year that Brooks Academy got the money, and that's what I'm just saying, that's probably the one year that we came that close. But I don't think we've come that close in any of the other years where we voted
It's like,
estimated
I think
revenues.
another year, I wasn't completely finished,
Yeah.
like 23, I think it was like 90,000, 98,000 was left. So, I mean, there's
It
no
wasn't, it
blame,
wasn't
there's
something
no.
this board did.
Yeah.
It was a directive from DOR that we had to
DOR?
use the money as far as projecting what we were gonna have for funding. Like Mary said, normally we'd use what we literally collect. We did that for years and years and years. Then they came out and they said, you can't use, if it's 23, 24, 25, you can't use 23, estimate for 24 based on,
Right, you can't use existing
Right.
year funds.
so
You
that
have
was,
to use your
that was from
certified
DOR,
balance.
that wasn't from this board.
So that, because you
If you
can't
had
use,
if you had money available at the time of town meeting, either open space, historic, or housing, or undesignated, you can vote from all four of those
what
sources.
David's point is that we have to vote either certified balances or anticipated revenue. You can't spend existing year funds
Right.
when you're in the existing year, right? I mean,
You
that's
can't spend,
correct, and that's what he's saying. He's
yeah,
saying
but
that
those
when we're
aren't your
voting-
only options.
when voting in 2023, we can't vote FY '23 revenue. We had to vote either anticipated revenue or existing certified balance.
Right, the three
So,
balances
that's
and
what
the
he's referring to.
undesignated, yeah.
Thank you, Mary.
You're welcome, David.
John?
Okay, I'm going to start with, what I hope is a very simple question, which is, am I correct that aside from the accounting confusion, we're done with land bank debt at this point?
Yes, yes.
Thank you. And my other point of clarification, I find this conversation very confusing. I'm probably alone in that, but, so none of these numbers apply to what we're doing here. These are simply examples.
Exactly, yeah.
And Mary already asked the question, but I'm gonna ask it again. Will any of these numbers, like estimated, we need estimated FY '25 revenue numbers in order to make decisions, as part of what we need, right? And when you responded to Mary saying you didn't know when numbers were gonna be available, was that response specific to estimated revenues, or was it specific to the certified balances from FY '23, or both?
Right, currently, we're still finalizing FY '23, so I don't have the actual revenues for that. Yeah, so, and I think all of the special funds, I think we're all set. There's the small adjustments from articles, that'll be rescinded and those balances will go back. The undesignated, the revenue goes into that account, and we're still recording, we have still interest that we have to record, so it's not the exact number. So, I mean, an estimated is, we're gonna follow along with, the pattern of, 23, and we have 24, already has an estimated revenue, that was from the prior year. It kind of just follows through each year. We can look at some conservative numbers, but I don't have 23's final revenue numbers to say, this is, this is the pattern, this is how it's going, so.
So, but, excuse me,
You, go ahead, John.
you will have estimated FY '25 numbers for us to use in the near future?
Yes, that's the goal.
Like
Yeah, we
before
have to re-
January,
Yeah, it has to be before then, because in order to set the tax rate, we have to have all of that. So everything has to be completed at the end of November, so.
So it's
So we
it's
should have
just,
final
it's the
numbers.
FY '23 balances that you're uncertain about the timing.
Right, I don't have exact numbers, and I wouldn't want to give you estimates, that's not fair. We're very close, it's not like there's going to be wild discrepancies by any means, but I don't have I'm going to hang my hat on this number.
What is the deadline for setting the tax rate?
Bills have to go out by December 31st, postmarked.
Okay, thank you. John, anything else?
Thank you. That's it.
Marcy?
No, I'm all set, thank you.
Do you understand the process?
I'm getting there. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a little, this fund's a little bit different than others, and so various funds have different terminology. You'll hear like, enterprise funds have retained earnings, general fund has certified free cash, CPA has special purpose balances. So it can be like, depending on what you're talking about, can be, a little bit confusing. The way the articles are recorded, depending on the funding sources. As long as, usually, you kind of will have the special purpose funds, people come through and says, we want to buy a parcel of land, we want to use open space CPA money, we think it's a good use of funds. And you're like, okay, well, we have, over 800,000. They're like, the land I want to buy is 150,000. For the CPA fund, we think we should buy it. And so you're like, okay, that's very reasonable. And sometimes, like, they'll be like, you know what, there's a community housing thing next year that we're going to want to really, put money aside for. So let's, save what we have here. We have 338,000. We're going to add like another 200,000. So someone said, I have a project that's really worthwhile. It's $400,000. You're like, well, that's great because we have 500,000 specific for community housing. And you can, do that. So that's more the purpose, and that's why, the funds have different designations, and that's why I want you to put money in each of them, is so, you're using money for not just one focus, but you're using it for like a couple of different projects. So it really kind of serves like the general purpose of the CPA funds. It's community preservation in different factors, because some people would love to spend it all on one thing, and so it's almost the state kind of says, no, spread the wealth, because it is a tax surcharge that everybody has to pay. They want it to be more even and equitable, and so that's really the intention. And the funding sources, we were talking about, estimated revenues. Those are the kind of things where you're like, geez, we have a great opportunity to buy a piece of land and it's $1 million, but we only have, 300,000 in open space. Well, let's not, miss out on that opportunity. Here's our other source of funds that we can use. We don't have the money set aside, but we don't want to miss out. So you're spending future money, really, is what it is. So you're charging against your estimated revenue. So over the course of time, as while the payments come through, the goal is to have, about, $1.82 million in estimated revenue. So you're like, it gives more flexibility for the fund. It's really the only fund you can do that with. You can't spend future money in any other capacity. It's either, that's it. I mean, they say, or borrow, that's the thing. So the CPA fund does give you, some really good options, and it helps the community, they've done terrific things. You see all the articles, for so many things have been done, that, the town can't always do on its own, so this fund and your committee can go through and, find really great projects and support them, and it makes the community better. But, yeah, that's why there's a lot, it's like, I get in the weeds of this, because that's what I'm supposed to do, but for the most part, like, you don't, you try not to kind of muck things up with all the accounting entries of the ins and outs and what gets transferred and paid, but that's pretty much like the overview is really, the whole intent of this is the fund is to, for the benefit of the community, but to allocate it to be equitable and to really, give everyone an opportunity depending on, what the need is, so that they can, everyone kind of gets a pretty fair shot at it, so. But there are some really big projects that suck up a lot of money.
Okay, any other questions from the board? Thank you.
Thank you
Sorry.
very much.
Marcy, I'm sorry.
I just want to say
Oh.
thank you.
Oh,
You explained
my
it so
pleasure.
well.
Oh.
Appreciate it.
I know it's a little much.
But
and
it was,
believe
it was
me,
good, thank you.
We've had town accountants and finance directors who've done this 10, 15 years, and we're still struggling with it. It's not easy. So I
Municipal
apologize
financing,
for Everybody had to do for all their stuff.
All taxes are future revenues.
what's that?
All taxes are future revenues.
Okay, next on the agenda, South Harwich Gravestone Conservation Project. HP 1 for $23,000. Robin, you have the floor. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. So the amount requested is 23,000. 15 monuments are in need of repair. Some of them are in multiple pieces. 29 are leaning and need new foundations. Gravestones bear witness to our lives, and countless individuals have contributed to our community and the culture of this nation and our town. So tombstones are really like a record of what's happened, and it tells the story of the people who came before you. There are many graveyard tours and the cemetery, and I love the epitaphs and everything that's in them. So I gave you guys a new updated packet today, and if you look, every time I do a CPC article for the gravestones, I take before and after pictures of what the stones look like before they were fixed. If you look at the stone repair on the very first one is Reliance Loveman. Her stone's in like, I think it's like probably 7 pieces. So it's, this is the smallest one I've ever done for the amount of money, but it's a small cemetery. This cemetery is on the National Register of Historic Places since 1984. It's the only cemetery in town on the National Register of Historic Places in the town. And I went before the Historic Commission, and they unanimously approved moving forward with this article. Can answer any questions if you guys have them.
All right, thank you, Robin. We'll start with John.
No questions, thank you.
Marcy,
No questions, thank you.
Robert,
So you've never actually had to do any restoration before in the cemetery?
In this cemetery, we did do, probably 10 or so years ago, we did do some stones that had broken. We did a stone cleaning workshop there, and the guy who came down, Jonathan Arpel, who taught us how to clean the gravestones, actually did some repairs for us for free. And we had repaired some before that, maybe 15 years ago. But this is, these are all new.
Okay, that's it for me.
The problem is when you don't fix them when they're leaning, then they fall and break. So before we were just fixing them when they were broken, but now we're trying to stop that from happening. And when they start to lean, we try to straighten them right away.
Thank you.
Emily,
I'm all set, thank you.
Marcy,
I'm all set, thank you.
Mary,
No questions for me.
Kathy.
Sorry, Kathy.
Okay,
I sounded historic already.
do you have a breakdown of the costs of what it costs to straighten one versus the repairing of one?
No, they usually don't do that. They usually go out themselves, and if you look at the last page, it's just, so John Fougiere's been doing a lot of work for the town of Dennis. He's done a lot of work for them for the last year. So Becky sent me a lot of his restoration work. So I went out and asked him, because he's a lot more reasonable in price compared to the people I've used in the past. So I walked the grounds with him and took him to everything. He took a lot of notes, and then he came back and gave me the price.
Okay, because we have like 44 altogether, and that breaks down to about 522 per.
Right. So it's pretty cheap to actually probably straighten some of them out, depending on their size. They have to dig out the entire foundation, then they gotta put in stone, and then they set the monument, and then they backfill the whole thing. So, I mean, it's labor intensive, but not that much. It's actual putting together of the monuments that are in several pieces, and sometimes they'll have to set 2 of them, and then leave whatever the mortar is or whatever they used for it to set before they can add the next piece and then the next piece. So it just takes a lot more time to do that. I mean, I could have them come in if you want me to.
No. No, I just wanted to.
It's kind of, if you went and saw when we're almost finished with the CPC article at the East Harwich Union Cemetery. I don't know if you've been in there to see some of the monuments that have been done, and they came out excellent as well. So I'm just waiting for all the document to close out that CPC
So
article.
is this similar to that in that they're done on site?
Yeah.
They're not taken away
No.
and done?
No. Only a couple times have they taken them away. Once, there was one that was so damaged that when we did the Mount Pleasant Cemetery, they had to take it back to the shop because they really had to clamp it tight, and they had to fill in a space that was missing of the monument. So very rarely do they take them off-site.
Okay.
Yeah.
All set? Any other questions from the board? Robin, thank you very much.
We just wanted to mention our Veterans Day dedication, and I hear Kathy's going to be attending. So it came out, if you have not been down there, it's from a previous CPC article that happened before COVID, so all the materials took a little bit longer to get here. The people who manufacture the flagpoles, we took photographs and sent them to them, and then Hamco, who installed them, are both using it on their brochures. So they're very excited. They'll be attending as well, and they're going to use it for kind of a demo for other towns to look at. So I'm very excited about it. We have 3 World War II veterans that are going to be participating in the event. And we're going to have the town band. We have people playing Amazing Grace on the bagpipes. It's going to be a great event, so I look forward to anyone who's going to attend. And I thank the CPC and, of course, the Harwich Town voters for voting these articles in. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Robin.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, next on the agenda, R4, Harwich Police Soccer Club Street Soccer.
Pitch.
Roger.
Sorry. Yeah, I got it. Please identify yourself.
Doing. My name is Bobby Brackett. I'm here on behalf of the Harwich Police Soccer Club and on behalf of the youth in the community. And Mr. Chair and ladies and gentlemen of the board, I thank you for the opportunity to come before you. My first time here, so bear with me. So I come before you tonight looking for your support in funding a street soccer pitch for the youth in our community. So in other words, I'm here to make a pitch for a pitch. A street soccer pitch is not just an investment in soccer development, but it's an investment in the community. Street soccer pitches create an engaging community. They encourage physical activity amongst our youth, build community through the interplay of all ages of people, races, ethnicities. They provide, more places for kids to play, more spaces for the communities to come together. They help build confidence in sports. They promote unstructured play of the youth in our community. Unstructured play helps children learn how to work collaboratively, to share, to negotiate, resolve conflicts, and learn self-advocacy skills. We've been fortunate, the Harwich Police Soccer Club, we've been fortunate to be able to borrow a street soccer pitch 2 of the last 3 summers. We were able to borrow it from the Mass Youth Soccer Association. We've set it up, we did in 2021 and this past summer in 2023, we were able to set it up in the parking lot of the community center. Thanks to Carol and Kerry for letting us do that. It was a great attraction to the community. When we ran our program, the nights we ran our community program, we had great crowds. We'd average about 100 kids a night that would come to play. We also got great crowds of people from people driving by that saw it. It's a very unique thing, so people driving by would see it and see the kids playing. They'd stop and watch. The nights where the Harwich Mariners are playing, we got great crowds of people that would leave the games and they'd come and they'd watch, and some of their kids would even jump in and play with our kids. There's only one other of these pitches on the Cape. It's in Hyannis. That was bought by the town of Barnstable for use of the community there. These pitches are completely portable. They can be set up anywhere. 4 or 5 people can set it up and break it down in a matter of a couple of hours. So these pitches can be set up anywhere in the community for community events. They could be moved. It could be at the community center for Cranberry Harvest Festival. They could be moved to the 204 Cultural Center. They could be put down someplace in the port for music in the port. They could be moved out anywhere in the community and put in any town property that can revitalize any properties that need it, can truly bring life to any community event in the town. I do have, if you can bear with me 30 seconds, I have a video to play that can show the street soccer pitch that we've had in use and where it's set up at the community center. So that's the pitch that we've been using and the pitch that we would like to purchase as well. You know, one of the things that the town of Harwich is significantly lacking in recreational facilities and activities for our youth. This is one thing that can help kids with free play, give them a place to show up and play anytime that they want in an unstructured environment. We don't really have anything like that in the community. We have a basketball court, and there's really no other place for them to go and play in an unstructured setting. Some of these lack of recreational activities and everything have been forcing some of our families to pay-to-play programs for activities which are expensive and they require a commitment. The lack of some of the recreational programs have causes some of these families to seek recreational activities in other towns. And we see a lot of families, unfortunately, going to some activities in other towns, which also leads to them forming relationships with other kids in other towns. There's a trickle-down effect where it leads to us losing some kids to school, families to school choice. I think it's very nice that, if we have more activities and places for our local kids to play. I grew up in the city, in Lowell. We were able to play street soccer and street hockey and everything we drag our nets to some of the local tennis courts to play. We were able to play. Some of our kids were able to go up to Hyannis and play with a group up there where they were able to play street soccer on some basketball courts up there. We'd set up some portable nets on there. You look at other communities, Dennis at Johnny Kelly Field, you go by there at night in the summertime and there's kids playing, they have groups playing street hockey on the tennis courts, street soccer on their tennis courts there. Unfortunately, we don't have that opportunity here in the town as we're not allowed to play anything on our tennis courts or pickleball courts other than pickleball or tennis. So we weren't able to do that here, which caused us to look for alternatives such as the street soccer pitch, and which is why I'm here tonight.
Okay, I'm gonna start this conversation. Just so you know, I'm the rep from
I'm aware of that.
Recreation to this. So a question for you.
Yep.
Have you had a discussion with Eric on areas within the town to use recreational areas?
Yes.
Would you like to fill me in on that discussion?
So what I can say is that in the past, I've had conversations with first of all, the Harwich Recreation has been very good to my program. Very supportive, very good to my program.
What I'm looking for is a lead into the use of the tennis courts
So-
and even the pickleball
So,
courts.
so what I can say is in 2021, when we used in my program, first of all, just so you know, I sent you guys an email to a link to give you an idea of the background of our program. Our program is a free program. We don't charge anything for our kids. I have over 200 kids that play in our indoor soccer program in the winter, completely free of charge. And in the summertime, we used to do beach soccer, and we would set up at Red River Beach. And we'd be able to set up 2 courts, soccer courts on Red River Beach with portable netting. It got to be it was a very daunting undertaking in trying to get down there at 5 o'clock at night in the middle of the summer and try to find an area of the beach that we could clear to play in. And it was a challenge at best, and for the most part, people were good about it, but sometimes there were people very cranky about us asking politely if they could move, and more than one time I refunded out of my own pocket their beach fee for the day to encourage them to help us. So I decided to try to pivot from that and go to play some street soccer, knowing that in the past we've played it on basketball courts and tennis courts in the past in other areas. I did approach Eric about playing, using the pickleball or tennis courts to play there, primarily because it's one of the only places in town that has lighting to be able to play at night. I asked about that. I went down there and looked at the pickleball courts to make sure it would work and everything. I asked about it, and I was told that only pickleball can play on there. And as a matter of fact, within a day of me making the request, there was a sign put up on the court that said pickleball only, all other activities prohibited.
Interesting. Do you have a location that you want?
So I don't have anything particularly lined up, so I'm hoping, Carolyn Carey's been great, so in the summers be able to put that there and be able to maybe move that to the 204 in another time of year. The problem we run into is even the 204, to set up in the parking lot there is not feasible because the asphalt and the pavement is in too rough of a condition to safely play. So we may be able to pivot it to a grass location. The benefit of this is we can be able to move it around. Now, my hope and my plans are in the future, not too distant future, is to be able to identify a location that we can set up properly to leave this set up. That's our hope long term.
Okay, thank you. Mary?
Help me out. Is the pitch literally just the fencing with the open
With
goals?
the nets, yep.
So how do you set it up on a parking lot? Do you have to drill holes in the parking lot?
Nope.
So it'll just sit on top?
It just sits on top.
Now, I saw some of the pictures that you had included had some turf. Is there an ad alternate that you can put like a turf?
So you
big
can,
turf down
so,
over
so I
pavement?
think long term, one of the nice aspects of it is that it can be played on pavement, and we've been playing on pavement without any issues. I think long term, if I were to find a location, I would probably look to put some type of turf material down.
So I just didn't know if they sold a turf that would
They
fit
do.
inside, that was a possibility.
The company that we
Yes.
does offer turf for it, that's all lined and everything with even a padding that's underneath.
Okay.
That's not being asked for in this
So you're
in
just
this
looking
proposal.
literally for the fencing?
I'm just looking for.
And it would make one court, not multiples?
It would make one. Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
All set, Mary?
Yes.
Thank you. Marcy?
So this is new to me, so it's very interesting. Thank you for showing us the video. So the community center is not like a permanent option to have it there, or?
I don't want to speak on behalf of anybody, but
Right.
so the problem is it does take away a number of parking spaces there, so I'm not asking to make any commitments from anybody to put this here permanently. I think that's something down the road, but I do know that the community center has been very gracious in allowing us to put it there the last couple of summers that we've had it. The goal is to find a place long-term to put it more permanent. Over the past several years, I've made inquiries with the rec department in the expansions of Brooks Park to hopefully have had something like this added into that, but unfortunately, it's gone to pickleball.
Thank you.
Just a couple logistical questions. When you take it down, ground, where would you store it?
So I'm working on that. We do have, I do have some hope for it. I do, one of the ideal things would be, I do know other places have trailers, like a construction enclosed trailer to do that. That would be one of the things that I'd be looking for. I did not think that would be an appropriate request for this board. But I will probably be looking for alternative funding sources for an enclosed trailer to store it in to make the transportation easier on that.
Let me go around the board first. Kathy?
Yeah, so this is just for summer, is what you're saying?
No, I'd like to leave this, I'd like to find,
A
leave
permanent,
this set, I'd like to even now have this set up on a more year-round basis.
Okay.
In the summer, the community center is a very good location to do it. It's worked out well. And then, but I certainly wouldn't want to leave it there. Certainly, if they would allow me to, I would leave it there year-round, but I'm
Well-
not asking them to. I would probably find a secondary location to move it to the rest of the year.
But I mean, you talk about portability. I mean, portability, I mean, when it takes a few hours to set up and break down, it's not exactly that portable. And in the same breath, you talk about looking for a permanent home for it. So it's just kind of wondering what you would optimally like to see. You want to see it being a permanent
I
thing.
would.
So all that stuff that you just said about, at the stroll and at the Sisson Road thing and a couple other places, ultimately may not happen.
It gives options. Yep. Because
gives options.
it is portable. You could set it up at various places. I know, for example, in Hyannis, the one that they have, they move it to different areas of the town. They rotate it through different areas of the town. Whether it be at the Youth and Community Center in Hyannis, whether it be at Barnstable High School, they move it throughout different areas of the town.
Okay.
They,
and the
for
reason
it.
for that?
Just to give different neighborhoods an opportunity for it, to give some people, Hyannis is obviously a more urban area, so people without transportation, it gives kids in different areas of the town the opportunity
visibility.
to use it. Yep.
So you, okay, so this is gonna be ultimately permanent. On your application, you said you were unaware of any boards or committees that you would think you needed support from. And I think that this committee would like to see some letters of support from the Recreation Department and Chamber of Commerce, if they think it's a good idea during the stroll or some other activities, the Sisson Road Administration, Community
Even
Center
Cranberry Festival.
Administration.
Even Cranberry Festival, when they're
yeah,
doing the
yeah.
bonfire and stuff like that.
I'm willing to make a pitch to anybody, I just wouldn't, it's kind of a unique thing, so I would be more than happy to take direction from the board and go seek recommendations from anybody that you think,
Well,
but
I
it is a
mean,
kind of a unique.
I think, the idea is a great idea. $50,000 for something that, really isn't that portable. It's just not. It's a question. Good.
Okay, Robert?
So this can go on top of a parking lot, for instance?
It can go in a parking lot, it can
It
go
could
on
go
grass,
on-
it could
on
go
the
on
grass.
sand, it could go on the beach.
Okay,
It could go, there's, the company that sells us, they've had them set up on beaches.
yeah. I mean, I'm thinking all that land in front of the Monomoy school system. To me, it-
Monomoy School was asked, back in 2021, they wouldn't allow me to put it there. And,
Well, that, in all defense to them, they run their girls'
Okay,
hockey program there, the football program. They run a lot of programs in the front of that field.
How about in the summer?
Can't answer that question.
They didn't want to take up the parking spaces for the Mariners games.
okay. And how long do these typically last, being outside and everything?
Oh, they'll last,
I mean, 10 years?
yeah,
20
they're
years?
weather resistant, they're all,
It's
yeah.
not gonna last 50 years,
Uh,
because
it-
they get beat up
They,
and stuff.
well, that would be depending on how beat up they
Right.
got, that would be it. But as far as weather, it's not really effective to it. And the nice thing about it is, these are not limited to just soccer. you know, these are up for creativity of those who play on it. You could play street hockey in it, you could play field hockey in it. It's open, you know, it'd be open to anybody's creativity to however they would want to use it.
And is there maintenance? I mean, you know, do the joints break when you're putting it together?
There's really no maintenance involved in it, yeah.
Okay. Okay, thanks. That's it.
Well said, Bob. John?
Yeah, okay, so I think it's great that you are running programs that involve, I think you said in your proposal, a couple hundred kids. I think that's fabulous. I don't know, in my experience, I raised kids, all of whom were involved in youth soccer programs. This was some decades ago. But I also have grandchildren, a little more recently, also have been involved in youth soccer programs. And I've never seen anything like this. Usually, it's on a piece of municipal turf somewhere that's lined out, and the only thing that's done is the soccer field is lined out, which, if you're gonna be permanent, that would seem like a way to run a soccer program is on, and as Bob was pointing out, there's a lot of flat, open fields that look like they should be available for use for this sort of thing, like at the community center, like in front of the high school. I don't know what other claims are on all that stuff, but it's not clear to me why there wouldn't be a program that just takes advantage of a sort of normal soccer field as opposed to having a moving piece of kit that costs $50,000. So I guess I'm making a statement as opposed to asking a question, but I guess the question is, why wouldn't you just be running a program on a lined field like happens everywhere?
Sure, excellent question. So, first of all, it's a different style game. So with the boards and everything, it's a different sided game, and it's a small sided game. So, normally, if you just have a open soccer field, so if you had an open field behind the community center with a couple of nets, now, meanwhile, we don't have a field in Harwich that even has that. We don't have any place in Harwich where a kid can go and just play soccer. There's no field. The town of Harwich only has one designated soccer field, and that's McPhee Field, which is behind the football field, which a lot of people in town don't even know it's back there. And there's no nets, there's no goals. So the kids, nobody can go there and play anyway. So, but in doing so, if you have a field like that, in order to do a game like that, you'd have to have a lot of kids in order to be able to play that structure game. Something like this only requires 3 or 4 kids can go in here and have a great game, bouncing it off the walls, and it's small, it's one-sided. So it's a different sport almost, it's a different thing. And it can be used for street hockey, field hockey, it's multi-purpose there. So it's kind of like a different game, everything. But it's much like a basketball court. A basketball court, you can go, one kid can go and play basketball on a basketball court, shoot a hoop. Whereas in a big soccer field, you can't really do an organized game unless you have a large amount of kids to play.
Okay, I guess my last question is, what's your plan B? That is, if you don't get funding this year from CPC, what's the consequences here?
I hope to be able to continue to borrow this street, so in 2021 we were able to get it, 2022 we weren't. So in 2022, we didn't run a program in the summer.
Okay, thank you.
Any, Kathy?
One extra question. How are you planning on organizing the shared use? You talked about multiple groups using this. How do you?
Well, it's there. So it's like a basketball court. Anybody can just show up and play, just like this will be, people can just show up and play.
But
So if
you
they
have
want
a,
to-
but
if-
you have a specific summer program that you run.
I do, we do one night a week.
Okay.
So other than that, so when we've had it set up at the community center in years past, the lifeguards used it after work. We had other people that showed up and used it during the week. There was a group from Orleans of autistic adults, that they would take a bus over and they used it on a weekly basis over the community center. It's one of those things, if you build it, they will come. It's there, and there's no barriers to play. People just show up and play.
It's outstanding. Mary, I'm sorry.
So just my one thought is, I would think that much like we do, cities and towns do with fields, you would want some kind of liability insurance so that you're covered, depending on whose land you're on and who's using it. Just kind of, I would keep that in mind.
We have insurance.
Okay, just
Okay.
for the
We
people,
have it. We have
for the people that are
insurance.
just showing up, that's kind of,
Well, it'd be like any, I mean, it would, that would be for,
Right.
but we have insurance.
okay.
Okay. The town has insurance for the fields
Right.
that are currently there now. It'd be no,
Well,
Right, but they usually get permits.
That's very specific when it comes to those fields.
Right, they usually get
The
permits.
users have to have policy in place, and they have to designate the town of Harwich. That's the way that's written.
They're usually
So-
named as as an additional insured.
what is?
When the users typically name the town as an additional insured when you're talking about.
So which users?
Any users of a town field are typically providing insurance and
So-
naming additional insured and insurance certificates.
So people in the public that show up and shoot basketball in Brooks Park and Loop, they don't have insurance. And there's nobody that
Correct,
names them.
but if it's an
That's why.
organized,
talking about
but if it's an
named programs.
organized
But this would
group-
be, this is something that's available for anybody to use. Now, with that in mind, we have insurance. Okay, that we can,
Yeah, no, I understand, I'm just saying in general, like if a league is using a town field,
yeah, that's a
Hypothetically-
separate, nobody's renting this, would be renting this facility,
okay.
this field. It's there to use.
Is there anybody else on the board that has any questions? I have a couple more.
Sure.
Any possibility of using the parking lot, the sand parking lot in back, down by the field complex?
At the community center?
Yeah.
Nope, there's not a problem there. But again, I'm cognizant about taking parking spaces away from any places. So that is in
The
the,
only thing that gets used for parking spaces.
Town
is
meeting.
Town meeting,
Yep.
and who the hell cares, so.
no, I'm open to everything there, but,
Okay.
but again, that's, ultimately, long-term, we'd like to find a permanent location, but
I would highly recommend that you go to the next Recreation Commission meeting,
I'd be more than happy to.
please. Okay, anything else from this board?
Just a quick thing, another place that's always vacant
Robert?
is Sand Pond parking lot.
Oh,
It's
that's
never
true.
full.
Yeah. Not real level, though.
No, I know.
Okay, thank you very much
Thank
for
you
your
for your time.
presentation.
Appreciate it.
All right. All right, next on the
Just take
agenda.
mine.
Yes, I'm sorry, mine is buried.
I want it back.
Yes, ma'am. CH6, Lower Cape Housing Institute Project.
Sorry, getting bossy. I'm sorry.
I got
Are
it.
those 5?
Yes,
I want them back, do not mark on them.
I can send you a digital copy as well. I have them in all sorts of forms.
We're supposed to be digital.
All right, please,
Slide
hold on for a
one.
second. Make a note that Bob's recusing himself from this discussion.
Thank you.
Okay, young lady, you have the floor.
My name is Amanda Bebren.
Giving you two.
I'm
I'll
the
write on it.
Director of Housing Advocacy at the Community Development Partnership, and I'm here to support our application for CPC funding for the Lower Cape Community Housing Partnership, of which the Lower Cape Housing Institute is a part. So the Lower Cape Housing Institute, or LCHI, has been in existence since 2017, And it was born out of a recognition that local government has a lot of elected and appointed officials and municipal staff who maybe have a lot of enthusiasm, but maybe some uneven skills or knowledge, especially where community housing is involved. So the point of the program is to provide resources, training, and support to municipal officials and staff about what affordable housing is, how it benefits our communities, and strategies to incorporate and work towards each town's housing production goals. So the Community Development Partnership serves the 8 towns of the Lower and Outer Cape, from Harwich all the way up to P-Town, and all 8 of our CPCs do contribute to the program. And mainly what the money covers is staff time. So the program is broken into 2 pieces. We do workshops and we do peer groups. And so the brochure that you have lays out the curriculum for the year. We are well underway. The workshops, we bring in town, regional, and state level experts. Topics include things like very nuts and bolts, Housing 101. We talk about financing, zoning, community engagement, land use. The history of land use was a great one. Sustainable communities, anything that's a topic that's currently a concern or is an emerging sort of trend, we dig into. The second part of the program is our peer groups, and that's a space for our housing advocates to share wins, which can feel very few and far between when we're in a housing crisis like our regions is. It's to commiserate on challenges, and more importantly, to build relationships across town lines. This is a regional problem, and usually town government sort of functions in a silo. So we strive to build relationships, and you don't have to reinvent the wheel. If there's another town that's doing something that you could make use of, go ahead and borrow it. I want to thank the town of Harwich and your CPC for your ongoing support. Our housing crisis is really worse than it's ever been. This is sort of 10 years plus a pandemic worth of backlog of not having enough housing for our local people. And it's really important that we have well-informed town decision makers who are willing to innovate, to come up with solutions and adapt to changing circumstances. And I think that how we talk about housing really impacts our ability to be able to create and preserve the housing that our local residents can both afford and maintain. I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you have. I will tell you that I'm not the accountant, so if you have questions for me like you did for your finance director, I'm gonna have to defer, but I will do my best.
We won't do it today.
Okay.
All right, thank you. I'm going to open it up to the board, please. Emily?
So I'm a marketer, so my brain always goes straight to like, can you capture this content and reuse it in different formats, like with the public or others? So.
Yeah, so that's the brochure. We're trying to be digital and green as well, and so I didn't want to bring you everything, but we have a separate flyer for each workshop that talks a little bit more about who the presenters are, what the description is. We have, the social media posts, especially to accompany our peer group meetings. So there are a lot of different pieces of collateral that get reused in a lot of different places.
I more meant like the actual workshops. Are you capturing the video?
Oh, yeah. They're recorded. They're on our YouTube. Primarily, the audience for this program is our municipal officials, although there is no cost, and we certainly welcome members of the public, whether they're resident housing advocates or future town leaders, people who are looking to get more involved. So yeah, if anybody's interested in coming, we support that.
Awesome, thank you.
Marcy?
Just a question, so if you are unable to get the CPC funds, what would be your backup plan?
We find a way to do, we're a nonprofit, we're scrappy, and we pursue lots of different funding streams and opportunities. Certainly, we appreciate having buy-in from all 8 of our towns, because for fairly short money, we think it is really valuable information and support. In addition to the workshops and peer groups, I also field a lot of requests for data and research. Because we work with all 8 towns, we can often pull things out that maybe one individual town doesn't have access to. We can help connect each other. So the program would continue, and certainly, any town that chose not to grant us CPC money would still be welcome to send their people. As this is a regional problem and a regional program, we would love your continued support.
I just had another question. So you also go through grants, you look for funding through grants?
We're a nonprofit. Again, I'm not our grants person, but we pursue pretty aggressively whatever monies are applicable, because everything has gotten more expensive, and we strive both to provide quality, relevant programming and to pay our people enough so that they can work full-time jobs and be able to live here.
Okay, thank you.
Mary?
So I guess my question, you pretty regularly hold these during the day. So for people that are working, it is not a convenient time for those of us that work to try and participate in them. Has the group thought of holding some of these at nights or on weekends or on other times besides 10 to 11:30?
We go back and forth about the scheduling pretty much every year. Again, because the target audience is for municipal staff and officials, usually our concern with doing them in the evening is that it's going to conflict with town board and committee meetings. We do record all of the workshops, so they're available. However, we are always open to input, and if the feedback that we get is that people really aren't able to attend because the timing is wrong, that's certainly something that we take into account as we plan year to year.
Okay, thanks.
All set, Mary?
Yep.
Kathy?
Yeah, so I'd like to talk about Harwich's sort of participation in the program, because historically, it seems that we've had low participation, at least for the last few years. So do you know what Harwich's participation has been in the last 3 years by year?
In the last 3 years, I don't. I know it's 42 all-time since 2017, and I believe it was 18 people last year, which is up a decent number.
That is up from, it has.
And I do coordinate with Brianna, who's your housing advocate, to help identify especially new board and committee members who would benefit from attending. But any suggestions you have for helping reach your board and committee members, I'm happy to work with you and send one-on-one invitations.
Okay. So your point person here to help us achieve the zoning goals that you set forth in the application. Who's your point person for that here?
I'm the program.
No, here in Harwich Town Hall.
Here in Harwich, so Brianna, your housing advocate, is chiefly who I work with, although, I think you just brought on a new town planner. I need to reach out to them and establish a relationship, but really open to having relationships with as many people who have their hands in housing as is relevant.
Okay.
And ultimately, we provide the education and the resources. All of the decision-making is still up to the towns. We have the goals and you have goals, but ultimately, I don't sit here and say, you have to do this, you have to do that. We present options and strategies, and if it's useful, town board and committee members make use of them, and if not, that's fine too.
Okay. I'm all set.
Okay. Robert? Oh, I'm sorry, he recused himself. John?
Yeah, I just have an administrative question.
Sure.
Do you intend the thing you handed out here to be part of your application? Are you considering that supplemental material, or? I'm just harping on the online process here, I'm sorry.
Certainly.
Well, if you want it to be part of the application, you should submit it as supplemental
My mother told me
material.
I should never show up empty-handed to things, so
Oh,
I didn't want to come with
gift.
nothing
I
for
didn't
you
get
to
that.
look
I'm
at.
sorry.
That stunned him. Okay. All set, John?
Yep.
Is there anything else from any of the board members? Hearing none, thank you very much for your
Thank you, Mr.
presentation.
Nixon. Thank you.
Can, John, can you let Bob know, come back in, please?
I don't think he's
He's
gonna,
probably.
Oh, still gone. Nope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
still gone.
No.
Okay, so the next thing on the docket is CH7, Old Bank Street Firehouse Housing Project. And they're asking for $850,000. Please identify yourselves, folks.
Bruce Young, I'm the president of the Howard Fire Association.
Joe Rigo, Harwich Fire Association. Said 5 copies, and somebody might have to share.
They have to give them to me at the end. This is
Okay.
just for, these
They
are
all
the
have
things
them
that
online
email.
already anyway.
Yeah, we have
Yeah,
them.
So
I'm
then,
not looking
would you
at-
like the 5 copies by yourself, or does
Well,
anybody want?
they can have them when we're at the meeting, but
I'll
I'm
give it back to
snagging
her, I
at the end.
promise.
I appreciate
I have it
Your
online.
pen over
Yeah,
there.
I'm looking at it.
Do you want?
Give
I have
mine to
I'm
her.
all set.
Yeah, I have a copy.
Okay, because you did email them. and I sent them.
Here's my letter of support also, if anyone needs it.
Okay, so you have the floor.
So, hello, I'm Joe, with the Harwich Fire Association. We have the 203 Bank Street Old Firehouse, and we are looking to put up some affordable housing apartments on the second floor of that building. We see the need for housing in town or throughout the community, and, we see in the future or present, it would really be beneficial to have places for working-class people to work in the town, live in the town, and pretty much support the community. So we did our due diligence, we got some estimates, we've got some designs, we've talked to some great local tradespeople, and some support from other groups in town, and we're looking to go forward in trying to put up 3 apartments for affordable housing.
Okay, I'm gonna open it up to the board. John?
So I'm not sure this question is directed at you or my fellow committee members. What are the requirements? I mean, what you have is estimates here. They're not bids, and I'm sorry, I don't understand the process here. What are the requirements on bidding a project like this out if we were to fund the $850,000 out of here?
So I think, and correct me
Mary,
if I'm
you have the
wrong,
floor.
I think what we would be doing would be, when you use CPA funds for affordable housing, you're really buying an affordable restriction, a permanent restriction on the property. So, and I believe our funds have to be used for 80% housing. So I appreciate your comment about workforce, but workforce wouldn't really fit unless it's 80% and it comes within
You're correct.
that.
Technically,
that-
it's the 80 to 100, depending on where the money comes from, the
Right.
restrictions applied, and it's either 80 or 100, depending on the group. We do not have to go to 40B bidding, because we're not a town entity, we're a private entity, but we do have to follow the Fair Housing Act, state law, on the requirements for affordable housing. And that comes to regional calculations of how much people earn to be eligible to live in affordable housing,
So it's an income,
income based.
just like,
So it's a means test.
just like what the Housing Trust is building. They are limited to 80% housing, I believe. And the Housing Authority with the federal housing that they run, it's capital A, it's true capital A affordable. So I think our money just strictly would go to pay for the affordable restriction that would have to be put on it. That's my
I
thought,
see.
but I could be totally wrong on that. That is just my gut
So,
response.
okay, I understand a little better now. I guess my real question is about how real that number is. There are local estimates, and whether it might end up being cheaper or more expensive than, how confident are you, I guess, is what I'm asking you, in those numbers? And once presumably you have a desire to involve local people in the construction. I'm wondering how that impacts the pricing one way or another, and whether there's any restrictions on how the project would be bid out on having that preference for local only.
So we haven't found any restrictions on constructing or bidding for construction. The restrictions are strictly for the tenancy.
Yeah,
And
okay.
through the Fair Housing Act, we would have to hire a management company and a lottery company that would facilitate the picking and choosing and the application process for tenants to apply to live in the apartment or apartments.
So the lottery company, that's finding the tenants,
Correct.
doesn't have anything to do with the construction process.
Exactly. So when you talk about construction, what we've done and why we feel confident with the numbers, using local tradespeople, they've been super excited, and we've gotten, things like Mid-Cape Home Centers has provided us with some discount on, a current project now and future projects. We've had some labor donations, we've had some material donations, so that's why we feel comfortable. Not only that, it's obvious we're firefighters, we're jack of all trades. We've been able to help some of these local tradespeople, and we're confident that could help reduce the cost if needed.
I think to better answer your question, we've had local contractors come in and look at this project, and has given us estimates on what it's gonna cost to do the plumbing, the electrical, the kitchen cabinets, the insulation, the plastering of the walls, and we've compiled all those numbers, and that's the number that we've come up with for doing that, these 3 apartments. I don't know if that answers your question a little better. It's not something that we've just pulled out of the air. We've had people come in, tradesmen, local contractors, to come in and give us these estimates.
Okay, thank you.
All set, John.
I'm all set.
Emily?
I think you answered the question I was gonna ask. You have to, from a maintenance perspective and lottery perspective, you use external. Is there, can you put kind of restrictions around the lottery component so you are getting folks who are working within the town or the area?
We wish. It sounds like through the Fair Housing Act, it's going to be more open to whomever applies. We hope to meet with a management company and a lottery company in the next week and kind of ask more questions. We haven't been able to meet with them yet. We've tried to meet once or twice, and it hasn't happened yet. But we had a Zoom meeting scheduled next week, and we're hoping to get some more answers on that. We would like more local, but based on some of the restrictions we might get with the funding, it may be more open to regional Cape Cod, which isn't bad either.
Thank you.
All set, Emily? Marcy?
I'm all set, thanks.
Mary?
I think the one thing to just consider is sometimes the people that are applying from off Cape are applying from off Cape because they already work here. So sometimes they really are your target audience, even though they don't live here already. We talk a lot about trying to help Harwich people. Well, sometimes they're Harwich workers who don't live here. So I think that's just something for the general public to keep in mind when we talk about there being no lottery restrictions.
It's definitely one of our concerns, and it was in my application, to reduce the commuting and keep people in the community. Not only then they're in the community, a part of the community, involved in sports, maybe some street soccer, and things like that,
I like the way you leverage that.
Little pitch
All set,
sucker.
Mary?
All set for me.
Kathy?
Okay, got a whole page of notes for you.
I'm ready.
Yeah, here we go.
Okay, so the first thing is, I'm trying to understand why you're doing this. Okay, because originally, it was to provide some income to make the operations below more sustainable, correct? So
It wasn't.
now, with an affordable housing rate, I don't know what the current rate is for a one-bedroom, 1,500, 1,700, something like that?
17 and a quarter.
You're in the area, yeah.
Okay, so how is that gonna work with whatever your future needs are?
So our goal, and you're right, our goals have changed over time as we learn laws and all those things. When we decided to go more affordable housing track, we were pleased to find out that the prices that we were considering to offer were the same as the affordable housing requirements. So our main goal as the group was concerned with people living here, working here, we know that the future people are younger people coming to work for the police department, the fire department, the town hall, the hospital. They're gonna have trouble buying a house or even a condo. So we're looking down the road to try to help. That's the goal that we had, to try to help that for the community. So that's where we're going with our housing. Yes, the value of the income would help maintain the building. And then it would also help those local community jobs is really what one of the things we were.
Can't be guaranteed that they'll have a local community job.
Nope, but we're hopeful.
Okay, but you have no control over that.
We have no control over where they work, no, but they do have to work and have income to live there.
Right, of course.
Yep.
Okay.
We'll
I
see
mean,
there are
if-
lots of municipal jobs open
Yeah.
across the Cape.
If we meet with a management company, they're the ones that take the lottery and they make the parameters for who's eligible to live there and who's not. And then they manage whether they make too much or don't make too much, or you know, maybe in the management company's rules and regulations, there's some wiggle room to help support the community or community workers. But they can't be non-working tenants, I believe.
Okay. I would suggest that you update the application that we have.
Mhm.
Because, you know, the number of bedrooms is different and from the original application.
I can do
The
that.
application
Uh,
itself, it mentions workforce
I'll
housing.
email
might
you
wanna
to ask you if
change some
that's-
of the verbiage.
Yep.
Okay, so, I went back to, last year's meeting, and watched the video.
Go on.
Well, because, you know, you said we're not gonna come back to you, and you made the comment to me, oh, we said that we wouldn't come back for the exterior, but we're back for the interior.
It was not
Which
specific, yeah.
Point, you didn't specify.
Right.
Okay, but one thing that you did say quite clearly was that we are a fundraising association.
Yes,
So could you tell me
yes.
what your income, and we've not seen any kind of income statement from you guys.
So what we're doing with this project is we are always constantly fundraising. We're a fundraising organization. We make all our money is from fundraising or donations. We have a subcommittee of our group that's working on fundraising. We did, because of the way the ball rolls, you know, we didn't have any established fundraising events really this summer except for music in the port, you know, looking for money. We do look forward to having more fundraising coming up, starting probably December. We're looking at Santa. You come get your picture with Santa at the old firehouse, you know, Bank Street Firehouse. We're looking at a cocktail party event hosted with the Conservation Trust, our co-owners of the property. And then we're looking at maybe doing a road race. And we have a couple other smaller events planned. I mean, and estimates here, we're looking at $270,000 possible income from our list of things that we're looking to do from December to September, October. We do sell T-shirts and sweatshirts. We've done that. We're revamping that. We've gotten more shirts in now. We're getting ready. We were going to sell some at the Cranberry Harvest Festival, but it was very wet that weekend. We applied for 2 grants at the moment, and we have worked with some grant writers to seek out more grants. I don't have the values on those yet, but that's something else, another avenue for money. And then I told you a little bit about our sweat equity. We try to do a lot of sweat equity, which doesn't give you a dollar amount, but it does add up to something. We have a couple people in our organization that have helped out in getting things ready to reduce the cost. And the last thing you guys probably may have heard of, we've been asking the Harwich Housing Trust, Affordable Housing Trust. We're seeking an application with them to help reduce this 850 number. If we can get some money through them, then my next meeting with you guys, I think we'd like to reduce that value to help free up money for other projects.
Okay, so still not giving me an income sort of statement, but I think I'm not gonna get that tonight.
It's very
So,
hard.
so far, I think we've raised 108,000 ourselves.
Okay.
That was money that was to purchase our part of the property, plus other donations that we have raised so far.
All right, if you don't get funding, or you only get partial funding,
Mhm.
how will you proceed? And are you thinking about taking out a loan to finish it?
Let's think positive here.
Yeah, so
Just
no.
asking the question.
Yep.
So we've thought about that. We haven't gotten into it. We'd have to go in front of our membership to discuss whether they want to go forward or not. We would have to make a group decision on whether or not we would put the project on hold, or if we'd go for a loan, or if we would borrow it on our investments. We don't have a decision or an idea, but, the hold, borrow, those are options. We just don't have a direction from our group yet.
Okay. When I took a look at the estimates, I mean, I certainly don't know how to estimate electrical or something like that, but I certainly know how to estimate appliances.
Yeah,
And
that
the
was crazy.
appliance estimates were, I mean, I've never spent $4,500 on a refrigerator and $2,000 on a dishwasher. So my point being, I know that you know, that's been inflated, obviously.
It was inflated, yeah.
how do we know all the other estimates aren't as inflated?
So I have to reach out to those, or different, contractors to get a better estimate. I agree, I saw the appliance estimate was extremely high, and that's why we reduced the number, because we did our own due diligence through homedepot.com, and we realized that that was high. Same with like, insulation and some of the other things. As this project goes forward, we need to re-quote or re-estimate some of these things. But some of these things, like we've said, these people, even though they give us an estimate to keep us safe in number, so we're not asking for less than what we need, there's some, not on paper, there's some promises of some help, like I said, with material and some labor, and having us help, maybe some of the contractors would help come to that better price.
And do you have to be ADA compliant at all?
So we don't have to meet ADA compliancy until you go to 4 or more apartments. We're at 3. We're just under that.
Okay. And.
Can I hold you
Yeah,
for one
sure.
second? That brings me up on a question I have. I'm looking at the blueprint, and I'm looking for the second egress in each one of the apartments,
So the common hallway goes down the middle,
right?
and there is an egress on the north side, the exterior, and then there's an egress on the south side. It's an interior stairway that goes down and out.
I see that, but I'm not seeing,
The one through the office, is that what you're talking, oh, right before the office.
Right before the office, yeah.
See where that is?
well, the office is here.
Right, he's
So
talking about that.
here's the egress here.
No, he's talking about this one. That's,
Right, but see this landing?
yeah, that comes out
You
the other
have
side,
1, 2, no, hold on. You only have 2 accesses. There's only 2 doors to that hallway. Now, is there I'm sorry, read blueprints. Is there something within, as you said, talking with Kathy, because you have 4 units, you have to reach a certain criteria?
We have 3 units,
They don't-
3 units,
yes.
and do those 3 units need to have access in and out, 2 access points
I think they all do that.
within the units?
I don't think they have to have them within the units. There's something we can check with the building commissioner on to confirm.
I always thought you had to have 2 egresses.
Yeah, I think because of the common hallway, you're allowed to have, I mean, it's,
2 out of the, they're thinking it's 2 out of the building. You're thinking
I
it's 2
completely
out of the
understand your question. Yeah, so 2 doors in each apartment instead of 1. Well, we can
Or
confirm.
a window.
A window, right out the door.
Yeah,
That's
I
one of the
understand.
requirements.
we can meet with the commissioner and figure out if this is, appropriate.
That's fine. Sorry, Kathy.
Yeah, so, I wanted to talk about the office,
Yes,
because this is sort of a new development.
yes.
And what was the reasoning behind that? And how do you separate the funding for the units versus the office? And who's the office for?
So the office is a general, you look at that area as common area, let's call the hallway and maybe the office. I haven't separated the value of the office specifically out of the cost from the estimates. The office is for the fire association to keep records, have a desk.
Wouldn't it be more secure on the first floor?
It could be secure anywhere in the building. So our first floor project, we're not coming to CPC for. The first floor project, we're funding ourselves, and that is gonna be the museum educational area, and we're trying to keep the square footage available to that. There will be maybe some storage downstairs, to keep, tables and chairs out of the way. But we're in bathrooms, for, those educational museum events. But, yeah, we're hoping to carve out that little corner just to keep, our fundraising supplies, file cabinets, treasurer's 7 years' worth of, records and stuff like that.
Do you know how much the management fees are gonna run, approximately? Do you have any idea?
The advocate of the town said maybe 15,000, but she was uncertain because her numbers were based on 2 apartments, of an example she had. So she was thinking $5,000 per an apartment might be appropriate. But like I said, we're trying to meet with some of the local groups to find out what they provide and how much it costs. And, you know, what are the intervals of its cost? Is it monthly, yearly, you know, one time? We're gonna figure that out.
Okay. And I noticed that when I was reading the plumbing estimate, that it talked about tying into the existing waste system. So
That's how they wrote
has-
their estimate.
Right, so has the existing waste system been tested, and we don't know the condition of it?
The existing waste system is present, but it won't be the correct system for the project. A system's being designed for the project, and it is included in the 850,000.
Okay, so.
We're
there-
kind of straying a little bit here.
Gonna need more time on each. 15 minutes does not cut it.
Okay, I'm good.
Mary?
So my only other question was, we've got this and we've got the parking lot.
Correct.
So I don't know that you can open without the parking lot. I think
Correct.
you can open without the apartments initially. So if push comes to shove with funding,
Yep.
what would your preference be? Would you lean towards the apartments or to the parking lot?
That's a good question.
I mean, I'm just looking at tight on funding.
Well, I think you have to look at it as the Colebrook project as well, that if we don't have the parking lot done, they're not gonna be able to use the Colebrook project either. That's kind of like
Yeah.
right central in the middle of the
That's what I'm afraid
project.
of.
And it's like, I think it would be wise that we finish that parking lot so that we could get the people out there to use the Colebrook project. And if we don't have our project quite finished, then we'll have to do our fundraising that we have planned to raise that money to get that finished.
Okay. Thank
But
you.
I think that Colebrook project, the town has a lot of money invested in it. Harwich Conservation Trust has a lot of money invested in that, and I think that needs to be, that
I
parking lot
think you
needs to be
folks do
finished.
too, when it comes
We do
to,
too.
Yeah.
comes to the museum.
But it's like, you can't get, if you don't have a parking lot, you can't get out to that.
Okay.
Well, you sent up the
Thank you.
balloons, so, and you were
Sorry.
sitting in the room and you listened to what was said tonight.
Hmm.
So.
Yep.
We're gonna have some issues.
And that's why we're really working on getting alternate funding. We understand. We don't wanna, I'm not fighting you guys.
I think both projects are gonna be great when they're done. It's just a matter of getting to the end
They will
point.
be. I think they'll be
Yeah,
fantastic.
Agreed.
yeah,
So-
and there's time if there's an issue.
Yeah.
Okay,
We move,
anything else from any of the other board members?
we move fast, Mary, but we could
I know.
slow down if we had to.
Looks
Okay.
great.
Thanks.
Thank you
It's
very
great so
much for your
far.
presentation.
Thank you very much.
Pass those on. She's taking them.
Well, this printed. I didn't take any from you. You done with it?
Oh, you had printed them.
Yeah, I printed mine.
Tweak everybody out though.
Yeah, we can. All right, I'm gonna change the agenda a little bit. Can I have has everybody seen the minutes from October 12th, 2023?
Yes,
Can I have
we
a
bring Bob
motion
back
to
in?
accept?
Can we let Bob sit down first?
Oh, didn't even see him.
I move to accept the minutes from October 12th, 2023.
Is there a second? Okay, motion and a second.
Who
All
said
those,
that, John? Who said that? John, thank you.
John, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Welcome back, Robert.
Thank you.
And I'll abstain again. I wasn't
Abstain.
here.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Okay, so that takes care of that. All right, discussion work on submitting applications. Hold on, hold the workshop on.
I put that in.
Okay, you got it. You got the floor.
Yeah, I had a chat with a potential applicant who thought that we were not as helpful as we could be, and that they suggested that we perhaps hold a workshop sometime before the applications were due in, to help people with the process. That's all. Just want to put it out there.
Just for clarification, when you say workshop, is it going through the process or like physically helping people? They bring materials and help?
I don't know. I think probably both,
Got it.
you know. I mean, I did tell the individual I talked to that, they had our numbers and, could have reached out at any time. I myself had had conversations with the person, and that wasn't satisfactory. So I said that I would bring it up to the group, and we can discuss it next cycle.
Mary?
So I'd be willing for us to sit and have kind of essentially open office hours, that we could have one working meeting, that we could offer to be here and answer questions and assist people, public meeting. I'd be willing to do that on
During the time of application.
yeah, enough before it, not on an election week. Knowing next year is an election year, but I'd be willing to do that and be able to answer questions for people if they want to bring their paperwork and sit and try and do it on paper before they do it, give it to John online or whatever. I'd be more than happy to donate those additional times to do it. I agree with Kathy. I don't think we've been difficult to get in touch with, but perhaps some people thought we were.
John?
So, question, what were the particular concerns? Were they about the specific online process, or was it more about content and what to present and what not to present?
Both.
Yeah, so, I would have been, for the online process, I would have been the person to talk to. Nobody called me. But on the other hand, my number wasn't out there, my email wasn't out there until they got the response. It was, the CPC email that was listed. That may be just one modification. I also think that it's a great idea to just step through the process, if you want to call that a workshop, whatever, for whoever's interested. Last minute panics because they don't understand the process and haven't even thought about it until,
Right.
5 or 4. That's not good for anybody.
It's not going to help the person that's doing it at 3:48 and trying to get it in by 4 o'clock, but for those that think ahead, I'd be happy to add a meeting.
And just another point is the process will be different next time. The software will be different. I don't know how. I'm hoping it's better. And, I mean, it might be a good idea to collect comments from people who went through the process, what they had a hard time about.
Can we set up a central clearinghouse of sorts? Instead of I'm definitely against having individual emails from the board on this web. Absolutely against that. So is there a different mechanism that we could apply to have all questions come in?
Well, that's sort of what the CPC at whatever.
But apparently it's not being,
Well, so you could easily set up, I mean, lots of websites do this, they just have an info
Yeah.
email that's not anybody's personal email, but it gets forwarded to one or more people who
Right.
can respond to those things. So that's an email where people submit their questions, and there are people who are going to be alert to those questions coming in, which, I mean, I don't know if that addresses what you're talking
well,
about.
it's going to sound bizarre, but a member of this board, who's now on the finance committee, had his email hacked, and another email was sent out looking for money. When I didn't click on it, I clicked on a different portion of it, and the list of every email of every department head in this town, including the selectmen and everybody else, came up on that list. I was blown away.
Yeah, that's how they spoof them. Happens every day.
I know in your world, not in my world.
Just to John's point about finding out what people had problems with, we could just do a Google survey for the existing applicants and, you know, send them to their email address. It auto feeds into a spreadsheet, which, you know, we can, if we wanted to try and do that, I mean, I don't know that
Is
it's
this something
this.
the person was looking to sit down one-on-one with individuals?
Yeah, they were, but I mean, I think to Mary's point, we really need to kind of get a feel for if any of the applicants, we have not heard that there's been any difficulties with the application process. Maybe there isn't
Well,
any, but it would be nice to
There's
get
not. I think John did a great job on
Right,
it.
right, but I think we should wait until, like, after deliberations.
Yeah, and like John said, if, you know, it'd be good to know what people did have a problem with. We might
Just
be
didn't
able to
like.
solve that with a simple Google survey and, you know, send out the emails and 10 people will respond and we'll have
Right.
quick answers.
Okay.
Okay, anything else in that discussion? Moving on. Possible change of CPA funding. Does anybody have any questions about that?
I just want to express my concern.
You have the floor.
So I know there are limited pools of money and there are a lot of, there's a lot of money that's going to be needed for sewer and other things. I just think that traditionally we have relied on our CPA funding to fund a lot of projects around town that keeps it off the budget and off the tax levy. I mean, technically on the tax levy, but out of the operating budget. So I think we make good use of our 3%. And I think hopefully the taxpayers will see that as they start noticing the signs that have started to go up around town. So I know there's a lot of money that's needed for sewer, but I'd hate to see us take from the CPA 3%. And also because unless it's done very carefully, you want to maximize your match from the state. You're not going to maximize your match from the state unless you're at your 3%. So that's the other concern that I have. But sticking strictly to changing the percentage, that's where my concerns are. And I would hope that we would choose not to, the town would choose not to do that.
So, Emily, just so you get a little background, the 2, 3, maybe 4 selectmen meetings ago, the subject came up at the meeting, and there was a discussion of moving the percentiles around. So the town administrator has been tasked to take a look at that. At the time, they used a general term, and they said 1%. So how that's gonna work out, I have no idea. That's what the statement that was made at the time. So, right now, the CPA, or the CPC, the town CPC, is in the process of marketing itself. That's why you're seeing the banners going up all over town. And that's because of the projects that have been placed on the list using CPC money that the town wouldn't necessarily fund. And it is an enormous amount of projects. If you get a chance, you can go online. I'm sure John has put all that information online. I'm speaking, I'm not, shouldn't be speaking for him, just
Well,
asking the question.
It's not just me, because 2 years ago, I think, and I didn't do it, Jan and Kathy probably put together a list of everything, all the expenditures and the status. It's maybe a year out of date at this point, we can talk about that, but that is up there.
So that was my question just for Emily's edification. Is that list on our CPC page?
It is,
I
just
haven't-
2023 is not on it, I think.
Gotcha. it's
So when you
quite
go
a
Should be a
long
link to
list
it.
of,
I've dug in a bit,
Yeah.
yeah, it's
You
great.
have seen that,
Yes.
okay.
Okay,
And it
I
would-
just wanted to make that clear.
So with that shift in funding would be voted on at town meeting?
it would have to be a town
Yeah,
meeting.
Yeah,
the-
this
It will come through the Board of Selectmen to the town administrator to make that presentation at town meeting. And then it's up to this board how they want to handle that presentation. I've heard all kinds of numbers through the year with wastewater. It started at 250, then it went to 350, 350 million. And I don't know what the last allocation was, 84 million. I'm not quite sure. I've lost count of it. But I've heard people talk within the town that the entire amount as an estimate is going to be in and around $500 million.
Stop scaring people.
Yeah, well, it is what it is. So, and this has to be accomplished within a 20-year period now, according to the state. So I find that interesting. It's going to be a lot of pressure on the taxpayers, and I understand what the board is looking at. I get it. It's just that I'm looking at the other side of it, seeing the good it does, and quite frankly, I'm going to wind up paying that tax anyway, no matter what. Of course, if I'm dead, they won't have to worry about it. But anyway.
It might give us a heart attack,
Yeah,
too.
well, Kathy.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that taking a percentage or 2 percentages away from the CPA funding has a much larger impact on the funding that we have and what we can do with it versus the impact it would have on the wastewater. It's like a drop in the bucket, no pun intended, for, the wastewater program. And again, to your point, we will lose state funds. And we have numbers from the state coalition about that to show how much we would lose in additional funding on a good year.
Yeah.
So I think we need to do everything we can to support keeping the full 3% funding for CPA funding.
Jeff, I've never been politically correct, and I'm not gonna start now. It just, I understand wastewater for what it's gonna do to the town, and I've already paid a significant bill myself to connect. It's still, it's gonna take away something that the town has access to provide housing, because that's where we're leaning into now. With the trust, what's happening in North Harwich, with the fire station, you diminish that 3%. You take that percent, that 500,000 or 600,000, whatever it is significant to the things we fund. I don't know how much significance it's gonna have to an overall budget that you folks are putting together. Now, that may sound crazy, but again, it's just a different point of view. John?
So, as I understand our role, no CPA-funded projects can go forward unless they're voted out of this committee.
Right, that's correct.
So I don't understand what the basis would be for such a change. You guys apparently do, so I'd love to hear about it.
Well, for example, we no longer have the land bank debt. So that could average around $300,000. That goes back into the CPC coverage so we could access. Maybe the thought process is on the other side that, well, they can't ask for money directly from CPC to use for wastewater.
So John,
But they can change, I'm sorry, go ahead.
so the specific thing is the 3% on your tax bill would change.
Okay, so.
And there would be so some communities have done it so that you still charge the 3%, but then they put in a wastewater fund and they funnel off some of it into, and only 2% goes to only 2% goes to CPA, and the other percentage goes into a special revenue fund for to offset wastewater costs.
Is there a?
I didn't know that was
Is
legal.
there a basis, a statutory basis for using a surcharge to fund wastewater?
That's a question.
I'm sure if there's a way to do it,
Sure,
somebody
they've
will
looked
figure
into
it out.
that.
Or is it just that, okay, they're gonna reduce the surcharge, or they're gonna ask town meeting to approve reducing the surcharge to 2%, and then jack up the regular levy to make up the difference, but then potentially run into restrictions and, whatever the 2.5%.
So there are different ways that people have done it, and I can't give you particulars off the top of my head.
So it's not actually a straightforward thing at all.
It's not, I don't think it is. I mean, some communities do only surcharge at 2%, so you could technically do that too.
But then they're giving with one hand and taking away with another.
That's a good way to put it.
Isn't it like 2024, it's called what, the sundowning or something that,
No, the sunset rule is something totally different.
oh, okay, I thought in 2024, that was when this could take place, a change in the percentage. It could be voted on.
Well, I think our 20 years
As
have
long as the land
expired.
debt
So-
is paid.
Okay.
Well, I don't.
So the general CPA for the state, I think, was put in, I want to say 2020, because the Cape had land bank already. The Cape came in 2024. There was a special act that allowed the Barnstable County communities to come in to the CPAs and switch out our land bank. So I think our years are expiring. I think that's
Yeah.
what the all the sundown was.
Okay.
So I think that's why it can happen.
20, I thought it was
20,
2004, that's what I meant,
Oh,
04.
Yeah, I was
Yeah,
gonna
so
say,
it's the
no.
20 years from '04. We were a few years behind the rest of the state because of our land bank.
Right.
I'm sorry, I'm missing what that has to do with this problem. Yes, there's more money gonna be available, given there are no other changes, because we're not having to deal with land bank debt, but how does that address this issue? Or is it just a rationale for taking money away from CPA funding because we don't have that expense anymore? Is that the
I
point?
think you answered your own question, John.
Okay, all right, thank you.
So anyway, is there anybody has any more discussion on this? Okay. Moving on. Swipe
Can-
this through.
But you have to give it back. And everybody who's taken papers, don't have, I want them. All that paper comes back
Okay,
to me.
Can-
Update on the new signs
Moving and,
under old business?
Amanda gave this to me before.
I think the signs look
oh, okay,
fantastic.
thank you.
Do.
Awesome.
I drive by the one at Brooks Academy, and it was like folding in on itself.
I know,
so
I restaked it today.
I staked it too. I tapped it down.
Yeah.
So it was standing up, so.
I'm gonna ask DPW, you need a maul to drive that thing in? I had a
Yeah.
framing hammer, but it
Yeah.
wasn't heavy enough,
Where is that location?
Brooks
Brooks
Academy.
Academy.
Ooh.
but thank you.
Yeah,
The one
but
at
it
the-
looks nice.
The one at the pickleball courts is really
It's
right.
beautiful, right?
there.
Right in
yes.
front.
Yeah.
How about, I haven't been down Queen Anne. I'll take a
Oh,
run
I
down.
haven't either. We put one in front of the Pleasant Lake property that the Affordable Housing Trust owns. And we also, there is one at the old Bank Street Fire Station.
Yeah, right smack on the plywood door.
You know what I wasn't thinking of was the South Harwich Meeting House. I mean, they have so much activity going on in
Right.
there.
But we could put a lawn sign there. So right now, I have 4 lawn signs. We used the 5 banners that we had. I do have 4 lawn signs. They are both sides. We had that conversation last month.
Oh.
So if anybody knows where they want to have it put, I'd be happy to just, stick it in the ground someplace. I didn't
think
want to
that's
just
an excellent
randomly
idea.
do
I
it.
think the South Harwich Meeting House, just because we're going into the holidays and they have so much programming, that people will be in and out at least.
Yes, they used to have
They did.
on their front lawn a sign that said this project was supported with CPA funding. They took that down.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they would be amenable.
Well,
Where's their sign? We could use it still.
I don't know.
Don't throw that stuff away.
Isn't that the cemetery that's before us for funding as
Mhm.
well?
But
So-
they don't manage the South
No, I
Harwich
know that.
Meeting House.
I know that, but I just,
So just, it's a simple request to Mrs. Ford, if
Yeah.
she'd mind us. She's the caretaker, more or less.
Okay.
By the way, just now that we're having this discussion, it was brought to me that any signs that go up in the town have to be approved by the Board of Selectmen. So I called.
and the building inspector probably too, because we have a
well,
sign ordinance,
the
signed by law.
It was the Board of Selectmen that was the issue. So I made a phone call to the former chair of the Board of Selectmen, and she granted me approval to allow the signs to go up in front of any town property, seeing that the money was paid for by the taxpayers of the town of Harwich, and it's a town sign. So I just wanted to lay that out there.
We might want to confirm that with the new chair,
Okay. Well,
or
I'm
the
not,
building
I'm
inspector.
not like jumping through hoops to figure
No.
out places. I mean, to
Right,
ask
right.
people for help. I mean,
I don't
permission
disagree.
here. So, I mean, do you want me to put them up or not?
Do it,
Absolutely.
do it.
I think
So
we
where
ought-
else do you want them in
Just
addition
What
to?
about the,
Blame me, I'll
what
take
about one of the
heat.
bathrooms at Brooks Park or someplace?
Sign.
That's
Just
all-
saying.
No, that's
Or
kind
the-
of, there's
or
two
the-
of them up. There's-
Or at
We
one
have
of
the
the fields?
banner, and then there's a sign on the courts
Okay,
when you drive in that CPC money funded.
okay.
The bathrooms are closed now, I think. So we need more
Yeah.
activity. So we need places where it's going to be visible.
The ball fields behind the community center were put in with CPC funding. So why can't a sign go up in the, oh, she's gonna love this, in the entryway of the community center as you walk in the main door, in the front area?
If it's a-
Did we have anything to do with the community center building? No.
No, but it's in reference to funding the ball fields.
Well, then it needs to be back by the ball fields.
I'm just looking at the
And are the
broader
ball
spectrum.
fields being used now, anyway? We're coming into the middle of
Coming into
November,
fall.
everything's stopped there. So I think we need to pick like maybe a kiosk at a trailhead that we
How about
funded
saving
for
every
conservation
single one?
restriction.
How about saving one of those signs or the entryway of the community center during town meeting? Or the ball fields during town meeting?
Okay, but they're not gonna allow it in the front because we didn't fund anything in the
Doesn't have
front.
to be in the front.
Okay, well, who's gonna see it in the back?
Everybody accesses those. They put up lights and everything else for town meeting. Just,
I think,
again,
why
I'm
not,
thinking
why
out of
not,
the box.
why not just hand out the flyers at town meeting?
I've got a ton of those to hand out.
Ask the,
Okay, so.
Robert,
there's no
I
fall
mean,
town meeting
I
anyway.
was looking at the list that's on the website.
Yeah.
There's tons of locations. I mean, we should put them on every single one of those locations, myself, I think. And I think we should order more of at least the smaller signs.
Yeah, I think that, can I speak?
you've got the floor.
Okay, I think that we decided as a committee that we would trial balloon this and see how they were received. So I think we need to do that before we order more. And we were concerned about vandalism, about the weather, about the
Well-
dirtiness of something. So I think we gotta figure that out first with what we have. We have 4 lawn signs and 5 banners. So the banners are at 4 locations, and we've got the lawn signs. So,
So where are we suggesting for the lawn signs?
well, one at the South Harwich Meeting
Meeting
House.
If they'll let us.
One at a trail kiosk. We could pick any number of them that we've supported with, conservation restriction.
How about the lights on Queen Anne Road? Headed to the dump?
I don't like people to have to look at something when they're like at a traffic thing, because, I mean, like driving by. No,
They
I know
drive
this.
by.
Well, I'm just saying, the smaller ones, you really have to like
Have to
focus
look.
on them, and,
I
I don't wanna
disagree with
cause
that.
accident or anything, so.
So at the South Harwich Meeting House, they frequently, maybe always have a yard sign out front there on
Right.
South Chatham Road right out there,
Right,
and it's fine print too, you can't
Right,
actually
can never read
read
it.
what's
Right,
on
right.
there. I
Right.
can't, when I drive by there all the time. But if you put a more visible, like CPC sign right next to their
yeah.
impossible to read sign, it might get
Yeah.
some attention.
Actually, a great spot would be the cemeteries, but I don't think it's appropriate.
Why not?
Because I don't think you want signage like that at a cemetery.
Look.
I mean, it's a place of peace and,
Diminishing returns.
Well,
No, I mean, I see both points. Bob is looking at the cemeteries as a historic,
well, no,
as
I
a
know,
historic
I know,
artifact.
and we've done a
And
lot
you're-
of them, but I don't think, I thought about the cemeteries, and I thought, that's probably not a good location.
however, at the South Harwich Meeting House
Yes.
and the South Harwich Cemetery,
Right.
to go to a program at the Meeting House, you walk right through the cemetery.
Yes,
You
you
walk
do.
past and over graves. I don't know if there's a way to go around all that stuff. I've never tried to figure that out because it's cold or it's raining. I just.
Always, every time I've gone.
Is
I
there
walk-
anything
I
at
walk
Colebrook?
directly-
Don't those people go down there and walk that whole,
That's closed right
You
now.
can't.
it's, it is
now.
closed now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a very
But there is
popular-
something
closed
down.
until we get a new
Work
parking
on
lot.
What about
It's
at
not
Bell's
there
Neck?
When they're being worked on.
Yeah, we talked about Bell's Neck, but I think we're worried that a hand sign, a small lawn sign, can easily be removed, and there's not a lot of, security up that way.
They've had issues.
I mean, we would love to do something that's in the North Harwich or West Harwich area, right?
What about on the bike path where it crosses Pleasant Lake at where the
Hinckley's, thing
the
is gonna
Hinckley
be?
thing is
That's a good
supposed to
idea.
happen, it hasn't happened,
All right,
but the alum treatment has happened.
right, okay, that's a good one.
Oh, I thought you
That-
had one there.
No.
Okay, yeah, that's
That's
a
a
great
good one.
place.
That's a good one, John.
That's really visible.
Right, too,
Yeah, perfect.
right.
Okay. All right. A
So
trail
that-
kiosk,
That may
Hinckley's
take
Pleasant
two
Lake.
signs,
No, that's
Kathy?
three. If we put one at a trail, one at the Pleasant.
No, you're missing my point.
He's saying put two at the Pleasant Lake.
Area, so when they're driving by, they're not looking at, completely
Okay.
looking right or left, or
Okay, great.
they can just see it as they drive by. Hey, that's why we put a V up at
I know.
Brooks
I know.
Academy. So they're not hitting each other, trying to strain to see what the sign says.
Okay, all right, we should be good then.
Make it visible when anyone's pulling out of the parking lot across the street with hot pizza. It's
Yeah,
right in their
absolutely.
face.
Absolutely.
Aye,
So I guess my next question would be for Kelly, who's not here, perhaps another note on our social media that says, CPC signs have gone up, what do you think? And just see if we get any
Yep.
Response.
feedback from it.
Have you been on the Facebook page? Okay, so do we even know if there is a presence?
Well, I think Kelly's
Yeah.
starting it, yes.
No, well, starting it, that was like months ago. I'm just wondering, does anybody seen anything on the
Just looking for
library
photos.
feed? Because that's what we're
I thought I
using.
saw something,
Oh,
but
it's on
Okay.
the line.
I haven't paid attention. I get lots
I'm
of,
not- I'm not
I get
on-
lots of Harwich Cape Cod and lots of
um,
all of those other posts, but
Okay.
You're looking
I
for,
was just gonna go look at.
It's the
I haven't-
library feed that they're allowing us to
Okay.
post on.
Okay, yeah, that was going to be my question. I haven't dug into what the channels are and.
Okay.
they were letting Kelly make a post every month or something,
Okay,
every week or so.
All right.
okay, I'll look.
Okay, I will post these 4 signs someplace.
Fabulous. I think they look
According to
great.
your wishes.
I think they look
Thank you.
great.
Yeah, thank you, Kathy.
you're doing the work, you do what you want.
I heard that, Kathy, I'll back you up.
Okay. Okay.
All right, is there anything else?
I was just coming up with ideas, sorry. Like, could you do, if there's a good response to the signs, could you like put, I know this is work, so we'd have to figure it out, but like, find the signs, like, we have 10 of them, and we have X amount of projects, and they're on 10 locations now, like, find them and you get a prize
Yeah,
or
we
something.
could do
That'd be a
anything.
great
Something
idea.
fun.
And you know, the Chamber of Commerce would help us,
Yes.
like, put together something.
Yeah, like-
But I think we need to take baby steps here.
Yeah, that, I.
No,
I
but
think
she's
a great
got a-
idea. It's a
She's
great
got a good
idea.
point. We could
That's a
do,
good idea.
we could ask Cindy if she could help us with a little goodie bag. She's really good at doing goodie bags.
Would you please
In the
repeat
summer?
what you said? I'm sorry.
I just said, if there, say there's a good response initially to the signs, and we had 10 of them, you could say, we're gonna put them on 10 surprise CPC-funded locations, and then people would have to track them down and find them. It could be like a little scavenger
Look, do a
hunt.
scavenger hunt and then, you know, have prizes. Maybe they're prizes
They
for
have
their
to take a
kids or their
picture in each
prizes.
spot,
Yeah.
There you go.
put it into the QR something code, whatever that thing is,
No.
and then,
You're good. I'm impressed.
I don't know how those work.
Ask
That's
Carolyn.
scaring the hell out of me.
No, but I think that's a great idea. So,
Yes, it is.
Yes.
What does it
a
take to
project
make
for a
it go?
Saturday morning, right?
We're gonna start the baby
You've
steps
nothing
here
else
and
to
see
do.
how our signs are received
Yeah,
first.
you can work up to it, or we could work up to it.
It's,
That's
the,
good.
the problem with baby steps in this town is, takes 10 years to do baby steps. So, if there's an idea that everybody in this board likes the idea, geez,
Let's just do it.
run with it.
So why don't we revisit next month?
Percolate a little, yeah.
Let's revisit
Yeah.
next month and
Okay.
see if people have seen them. And in the interim, I'm sure Cindy's watching our meeting and we can ask her to see what she could come up with for a little
Goodie bag.
goodie bag prizes of some sort.
And also Carolyn Carey, she does these things.
Thank
all
you.
the time,
Yeah.
So she really,
All your applications.
And I'm
that great
sure we-
duck one that was all over town.
And I'm sure we have some administrative funds that we could, you know, put
Any
something
left?
towards.
Is they're all gonna be
So,
zeroed out?
so that was gonna be my next question. Are we gonna
We have to include that.
do,
Hold on.
is it not worth taking some time to discuss what Kathleen discussed with us this evening? Or are you
I'm
requesting we
very-
defer it?
I prefer it on that.
Okay,
Um,
fine. You didn't make me happy, but okay.
This meeting's so long, it's running itself out. Paper, I want
I
paper.
want to be very careful. That's all.
Everyone's packed up all my paper.
I don't have any.
I didn't take
I don't have
anything.
any. I brought my own.
I gave you everything back.
Okay.
All right, I
You
have,
can
we'll
have-
make a
you can
motion
have
to
Robin
adjourn the
Kelly's if you
meeting.
want
Yeah,
that.
okay.
Make a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Jan,